What's up, y'all? Kevin Wagstaff, another episode of Spector Spotlight. Today we have Tim Wojnar again. 3 times he's been on the pod now, this being his third, but he always brings it, and he brings a vision, and he brings his updated thoughts from IEB, and he's evolving his way of running and owning and leading his company over the years, and it's been beautiful to see. So I'm always happy to have him back on. But he talks a lot about knowing your market, knowing your numbers. We talk about growing and leading a team. We talk about how important vision is. We can't talk about that enough, frankly. And then he talks about little hacks and tactics that he uses to kind of keep him on track, growing his company to get where he wants it to go. So I hope you enjoy. And again, thank you all for listening. Can't tell you how much I appreciate the notes of encouragement and even guest recommendations. You're always welcome to email us someone that you think should be on, or someone that you think could add a ton of value. So thank you all for listening. I enjoyed doing these, and hope you enjoy. Tim, you are the first 3-time guest on the podcast, so welcome back. What's up, man?
I love it. Nothing much.
How are the holidays?
Good. Too much turkey. So
you said you're at your folks' place?
Yeah. Well, we actually went to go to my parents and then her aunt's place. So we had to do 2 dinners, which is very daunting. It leaves me like very sluggish for a couple of days. But no, I survived it, and that was good. Did some Christmas stuff with the kids after, decorating and whatnot. Some good times, and slower around the office, so you always try to take advantage of those opportunities when they come along.
What is the slowdown like usually? I see the volume like across our network, but is it like, does it go to a complete stop on like the day before Thanksgiving, or is there like trickles of business?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't book anything Friday, so like Wednesday we had some bookings for the following week. Friday, Saturday, we didn't really have anything, and then we booked a couple appointments on Sunday. So things still roll in, and realtors are still wanting to push things along as fast as they can, as you know. So I think it depends on the year. So it depends on what the market's like and whatnot. Other years it's been completely dead. This year we're still keeping rolling, so that's always a good sign. Too. And we got we're booking jobs for this week, and we'll expect another little slowdown during Christmas. But last year December was one of our better months, and I don't know if that's because COVID or everything else going on, but it just like it's still kind of hard to kind of determine like what was last year a blip, or was that kind of just the investor market picking up, because we see a lot of multifamilies this time of year, and different investor inspections coming up. So
have you tried to dig into comps? Because I feel like comps have gotten so blown up after the COVID year, like year over year, month over month. Like I remember last December too, everyone was just like, I'm busier than I've ever been. This is insane. And everyone expects the slowdown. Have you tried to make sense of the numbers, or are you just saying, you know what, this is too hard to draw anything?
We're actually in the process. I'm working with a real estate team that we do a lot of business with, and to kind of get the market share numbers for the last 2 years, so we could kind of actually start plotting that off. Because you're right. Unless if you don't know like how many houses are being sold, how do you know if you're really just being slow, or you're actually having a good month, but maybe you're having a good month, but you're just keeping pace with the rest of the market. Maybe the rest of the market's having this huge correction factor. And I wish I would start thinking about that last year, because like everything was all over the place. I know some markets start seeing like increases in April. Ours kind of kicked in at the end of May last year, and then it really skyrocketed. And then it kind of went up and down a bunch, and December kind of ended strong. So I don't know if like all the market just got pushed back, because half of March and April were pretty much dead for us last year. And then we start seeing those trends too. But it's a great point. You really need to know your market metrics, and that's something that we're working on as we kind of progress, and making sure, hey, when we're actually having these busy months, because some of our months right now, like October, was actually our second busiest month of the year. And that's typically, it will slow down a little bit during that time. So I have a feeling we're gaining market value, but unless you know your data, you don't know anything, right? So.
Let's dig into that, because I don't, was this inspired by the Aaron Guyton session at IEB?
Oh yeah,
were you in that one?
Yeah, yes. And I think being IEB and just consuming everything that Aaron has, there's just so much stuff to really get your head around. But yeah, market share is such a big one, and really, because knowing your numbers, and coming from engineering background, I totally appreciate that too. Just getting into your numbers and really knowing firmly like where you're headed, where your profit is, where your market share is. Because if you're seeing trends in your market share increase up, then you have to start thinking about hiring inspectors right at that moment. I feel like typically, especially younger inspection companies, they hire way too late for home inspectors. And you need to know your metrics in order to start saying, hey, do we need to start hiring for next year or for 3 months from now? Because when you realize you need another inspector, you're at least 3 to 6 months out, depending on who you find, what their skill level is.
Can you break down, like, for those listening that are not in IEB, let's let them in on the convo. If you could break down kind of that part of what Aaron was getting at in terms of even just understanding basic market share, what that would look like for, say, a solo guy that's like, okay, well, how do I do that? What does that mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, you need to kind of get your market's numbers. And that really depends on your region, right? If you're in a big city area, what we're doing is we're concentrating on Cook County, which is Chicago and a decent part of the surrounding suburbs, the suburbs that surround Chicago. So you're taking the information from, if you have access to MLS, or if a realtor who has access, or even, if you're just a solo inspector getting started, just get some sort of publication that maybe publishes that information, because some information is better than nothing.
I think everyone knows a realtor that should be able to give them access.
Yeah,
that's the hope, right? Everyone's got to know.
If you have a friend, or take them out to dinner, do something just to get the information, because it is important. And so let's just say, I'm just going to keep the math simple. So let's say in Cook County there was 10,000 properties that went under contract. Okay. And then
for the year,
for a month,
okay.
For a month. Yeah. So let's say August, there was 10,000 inspections, and we did 100 inspections in the month of August. So you divide 100 by 10,000, and that gives you 1% market share. So that means you own 1% of your market. Now you want to do that on a monthly basis. And it's always going to be, it's never going to be like, oh yeah, we're steady, because there's different factors. But if you plot it enough over time, you should start to see it actually go upward, versus downward, or stay steady. If you start seeing it go downward, that means you're losing market share. And the reason that's important is, like, you might be steady in your business, but maybe the market's just really hot at that time. And the market being hot, eventually you're losing ground. So when the market maybe adjusts later on, you're actually, in the head going to get a dip in your overall inspections when the market adjusts eventually to that. But same thing for, a larger company. You might have a dip 1 month, but then you look at the number, you actually gained market share because you took a larger percentage of those inspections. And this is where it comes important for, like, hiring. A lot of business owners will look at, like, oh, we didn't do as well last month, we need to start getting to scarcity mode and cutting budget and doing all this. Whereas if you're starting to track those trends, you're like, well, I might actually need to start thinking about hiring someone right now and get that process going to hire. Because if our market percentage rises, just think about when it's going to get busy next year. We're going to have too many jobs.
Boom. Yeah.
Well, so it's really important to look at those numbers and, versus like, yeah, everyone likes to look at revenue because it's money, right? It's like, okay, we get all this money, so we're trending right. But if if your market is doing really well, that's gonna fall. So then you might hire someone based off that, and then when things dip down, then you're not gonna have enough to kind of feed that inspector. So
I think this is such a simple calculation. What percent of inspectors would you guess even do this on a monthly basis? One, two?
Yeah. Not. I mean, I would say probably a lot of the bigger inspection companies are starting to do this type of work, not the small man shop. And to be honest, it's just like you're balancing a lot of things, and the one you're looking at it, like the one last thing you're like, oh, I need to pull all these data and pull all these metrics, and either hire someone to do it or spend a Friday evening crunching the numbers and want to do that. But it's so important, especially if you want to grow. And even if you're a solo inspector shop, you want to know where you're kind of positioned, because you also want to know, hey, am I starting to go down, because that could spell issues for you. I mean, as a solo inspector, you're probably gonna hit a cap, of how many inspections you can actually do per the market, and you want to make sure that you're not losing market share, because you get too busy, you might start losing realtors because they need someone sooner. So you want to have, like, the sooner you know that information, the better.
Yes.
And
I know we're beating this to death, but like, gosh, there's probably no more important time to think about this when times are feeling at their best, and interest rates next year have a high chance of ticking up, which could, bring volume of closings down or under contracts down. So it's like, you got to know your numbers, especially if we contract even a little next year, right?
Yeah, and then when you see that contraction, that's going to spell like people who aren't following the market, that's when they're going to get hurt,
Mm-hmm.
And where people who are prepared for that and see that their market's gaining, they're going to actually use that to flip on the up and be like, we can capture more market now.
Yep.
Because there's people who are getting out of the industry because they didn't plan ahead.
So PSA, be prepared, know your numbers. This is a small way to start too. I love how approachable it is. Take one number, divide it by another.
Yeah, and you can never get too comfortable. You gotta keep building your brand. You gotta keep getting out there, getting out in front of realtors. Whether you want to grow past the one man shop or you're comfortable where you're at, like, you always have to be networking, because there's going to be turnover. There's going to be lots of things that change. And if you just think, hey, I'm set right now, I don't need to do any more marketing because I have all these realtors,
you're done.
Things happen. Realtors move out of states. We've had that happen with, you never know when there's going to be that one big thing that's going to hurt your business enough, where you're going to get scrambling in a down market. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's jump back to the IEB conference. Because I know we see each other there every 6 months now at this point. Because we wanted to just talk kind of personal growth goals, but at a high level. This past conference, what was that, a month ago?
Yeah, it was almost a month ago. Yeah, beginning of November. So,
what impact did it have on you? What did you come away thinking from that conference?
I think my one big takeaway is embracing who I am as a leader, and not changing who I am. So everyone has different personalities, and realizing, as business owners, sometimes we get afraid of causing too much turbulence behind us, right?
Yes.
And we want to push faster, but like, well, I don't want everyone to be pissed off behind me because
you're just leaving wreckage behind you.
Yeah, and I mean, to a certain extent, it's just the balance of the team and really understanding the importance of a team around me. Because right now I'm rereading Traction. I don't know if you've ever
heard of it.
Traction at EOS. Yeah. So one of the things they talk about is you have your visionary and then you have your integrator, right? And you kind of need both in an organization. The visionary is the really one who, they may have 10 ideas a week and maybe one's just great. but they're always trying to think of like the next thing, how to kind of push the limits, how to go to the next level. Whereas the integrator is really the person who's going to take that and integrate it into the company and actually make it reality, and gain the little details right. And just realizing how much of a visionary I am, and tend to have all these good ideas. I could do some integration, but really my strength is in pushing the vision of the company forward. And a lot of business owners, I feel like they may be visionaries, but they're afraid to kind of embrace that stuff because they're worried about pissing people off, honestly, behind them. But you need both. You need the visionary to really drive the speedboat, and you need the people behind them to kind of make sure that it's not going to go off the cliff type of deal, and pull it. And just realizing that really it's just about embracing my true nature as a leader, and using my strengths, and finding people to pick up my limitations, because everyone has limitations, whether we want to admit it or not. And really forming that strong leadership for the company kind of going forward is going to be the kind of next big wave, because I realize to get where we want to get, it's like I'm going to have to start moving faster. I'm going to need people to kind of pick up and kind of be working in my wake a little bit, and integrating and really do it to get to the level of company that we want to be.
So one, is the team currently set up today with that in place? Is it something you're actively now saying, okay, I know what I'm looking for to kind of work with me?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of evaluations on that. Like, okay, where the other thing with Traction is talks about right seat, right person, and making sure that people are in the right seat. So we're doing some stuff with the Pivot Ready team system to gain some taking some assessments about what kind of motivates each individual, what kind of role fits each individual, and learning to play to each individual's strengths, versus focusing on weaknesses. Making sure that the right people are on those right seats. So it's evolving. We're starting to have a structure with operations, growth, and services too, but that's going to be the really big thing, is solidifying that group and really how we operate as a leadership team going forward, because that's what's going to separate a mid-sized company from a stronger company, is really everything starting to go through the leadership team and some direction, versus everything going through the owner. Owner, where the owner in that role is more going to be accountability for the leadership team, and then also visioning where's the next step the company's taking.
Yeah, got to have those A players around you to take it to the next level. For those that are wondering what like embracing your strengths and who you are as a leader, what does it look like when you're not doing that? Like what? Because I guarantee there's a lot of inspectors and companies that don't even know how much they're not leaning into leading their company and having a vision. So like, what does that look and feel like when someone is not doing that?
I mean, I think you feel de-energized. I think just
because you're on the treadmill. You're
on the treadmill. Like I've noticed that too, and not saying that like even after the conference, I still notice myself trying to get on the treadmill or trying to force different things too.
We can't wait to get home and get back on the plain office, or being on fake busy.
Yeah, and like everyone has different. It's just not like owners of companies. They don't necessarily have to be as pure of a visionary, but when they're not focusing on the things that really in their strength, that you will notice like you're not as happy, you don't have as much energy, and you're almost trying to like fake it a little bit, right?
Just push through, soldier up, whatever.
Yeah, because it's almost like, well, if I can't do this, how can I expect someone else to do this? And that's not really the attitude. Like, you need a team around you, everyone. You need strengths, because you are, you're not just bringing in a team of 3 other people on your leadership team to help you. It's not just, increasing your strength by 3 times, it's increasing it by 30 times. Because you're really honing on each individual strength and how they kind of work together within the team and make decisions. So, just like think about where you are bottlenecking your company, right? And usually where you're bottlenecking, that's because you're trying to fake it till you make it with something that is either you don't feel comfortable with, you just hate doing. And it has, there's been things where I'm just like, why has this been on my to-do list for 4 months?
It's clearly not something you want to do. Yeah.
It's something I don't want to do. It doesn't drive me forward. But what if you find those people where those are the things that they want to do, those are the things that they want to focus on. And really now you're covering the blind side. You're covering your blind side by bringing in people who are going to protect you and cover your limitations. So you could really focus on, driving down the field.
What are some of those tasks that for you that I know I have some? What are some of those things where you're just like, I never get around to doing this?
Ordering business cards for the inspectors was a big one.
Yeah, just a logistical task.
Yeah, and I'm just like, what, at the end of the day, I'm just like, okay, why am I taking,
forever to do this
versus just be like, hey, who wants to do this? Or who wishes this order? Or if we could find someone internally, like pay a graphic designer, match all this stuff up and whatnot, pay the couple extra $100 just to have it, taken off the plate. And a lot of times you get like, oh, well, it's like, oh, I shouldn't pay that couple extra $100, but how much mental energy every week that just being on your to-do list is that costing you?
And that's what we can't measure, right? The mental tax, the energy that you think, spend thinking about that. And that's why it happens, because we can't measure it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of just like having like a piece of garbage on the floor that you just like keep staying there. And every time you pass by, like, I should pick up that piece of garbage, but you don't,
But you thought about it. You spent some units of energy thinking.
Yeah. It's like, it's in the corner. It's such a hard spot to get, but that's really just like, it stays with you. Like everything stays with you. Whether, if it's a item that you're like, you think you should be doing. I think Getting Stuff Done is another good book. He talks about, when you add a task inside your brain, it will automatically just keep reiterating itself like, I need to do this task now. If you don't do that task now, it's going to cause you stress until that task gets
every
done.
Day sometimes.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah. Unless you write it down or you get it done. Or you delegate it, as a owner or as a leader, starting to delegate and just realizing, because a lot of times when you're not doing those tasks, that's a definite signal that that's something not, within your wheelhouse. That's not a strength of yours. And just looking at like, who else on the team could do this? If it's not someone else on the team, it's like, can we outsource it at the end of the day?
Oh, I love that. Write it down, do it, or delegate it. I just wrote that down. That might be the name of the episode. So on the personal growth front, we can go a couple different ways here. You tell me what's interesting to you, because I think you mentioned hiring. You mentioned the average company hires way too late out of fear of the dynamic in our industry is that the inspections are going to dry up and you're going to have people without inspections to do. At least in the last 5 years, I've seen it hold companies back from being double the size they are out of fear of the good times ending. How do you think about that? I'll just leave it at that. How do you think about hiring while still not overextending? It's the hardest decision, I think, in our industry.
Well, I think everyone looks, and this was myself included, everyone looks at the long term, right? Like, what is, so for instance, we're looking to hire two new trainees to get ready for the spring next year.
Okay.
And that, to be honest, scares me.
Yeah.
It scares me a lot because it's just like, okay, we've never hit those levels, but when, first off, having a clear vision, right? So what is your clear vision for the next year? And I realized in order to hit our vision, we need to have 2 more inspectors ready by springtime.
Yeah.
Like that's all, that's what we have to do. So really having a good plan and just not being like, okay, well, we're adding people just because we need it, but just like, well, how are you going to get there? Right. Because now it's not, okay, we're hiring 2 people and okay, we hired these trainees and we're working them now. It's like, okay, what do we need to do from a growth aspect to get there? What do we need to do from an operations standpoint to get there? What do we need to do from a services, and really looking as a whole and really brainstorming all of that? Because there's a lot of different ways to slice it, like, bring on more ancillary services, increase your ancillary services along with your inspections. One of the things that really helped us this year is we were doing a lot of subcontract, a lot of sewer scopes and radon. Now we brought those in house, and now we could really double down on selling those and also hitting up agents, and really focusing on agents that want to sell those services. I mean, almost for us, because they believe, that their clients need those services. And, always are recommending them. So those are the things that start, moving your bottom line. Just getting creative, because I mean, there's several different ways to make more revenue. One is increase your price per inspection. And the other one is to bring in more inspections. So how do you balance those two and kind of get creative outside? So now that we know, hey, this is our revenue goal, and this is about how many inspections we want to do, then you start thinking about like, okay, what do we want to take per inspection? Like, what's the pricing per inspection that we want to start bringing in? And playing with all those numbers, increasing your pricing, all that. So having that clear vision. So, if you're seeing all the numbers like, oh yeah, we should bring in two more inspectors and get them trained up. If you do nothing in the meantime, that's kind of on you. You can't just expect, hey, I'm gonna like grow the business, and then, oh, now I have enough, to grow the business, but maybe you grew the business too slow and realtors stopped using you because you weren't, your guys weren't available for 10 days.
And you don't notice that when you're on the treadmill. That's full circle, is like most inspectors don't know when a medium producer fades away.
Yeah. And then, I mean, on top of that, when the other thing is, it's like really when you're hiring someone, it's a temporary decision, right? Everything is, so, we bring on the 2 trainees and, everything, we do everything we can. Unfortunately, if we don't have enough work, they get a free inspector training.
Yeah.
And, have a good head start for the business. And, we lose some money, but that's, there's always the risk that you take. You have, like, if you there's always going to be those times where you risk it and you're not able to make it. I think that's just natural in business. And then at that point, you have to make those tough decisions too.
But it's a couple months of risk, as opposed to, I think every business owner thinks of it as an annual, or like what you're paying someone in 12 months. You're not guaranteeing anyone 12 months of employment. I think business owners have to think of it more clinically and say, you know what, this is like a 2 or 3 month experiment to see if this person is fit for our business, or if the work's there,
And what if an inspector leaves?
Right.
Too.
Got to plan for churn.
Yeah. So, like we actually brought in 3 trainees last year, mostly because just like, well, from what we've experienced in the past, the average is one of them wasn't gonna make it. And that's actually what happened. You try to hire, well, you do all the interviews, but until you actually get people and get their tendencies out there, you try to get smarter and smarter about making those right choices, but there's always things there in your blind spot that you can't see. So really knowing those numbers, because I've talked to other inspection companies and they lose an inspector during the busy season, just how much, of that, they're losing that revenue that they could have been gaining because now they're too busy and they don't have anyone, they can't get anyone out there for another 3 months.
Always got to be ahead of the game, not behind.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to the like you mentioned, selling to agents or promoting your ancillary services to agents because they help do the upsell. I think that's I want to zoom in on that because I think that's a really important function that most inspectors don't even think about. They think it's all on them. They set up their actions. They do whatever to solely sell those ancillaries. How do you guys go about kind of educating agents to help out with that?
Yeah. So we've been focusing a lot of our efforts on top, producing teams in the city. And I've been doing a lot of like lunch and learn presentations. I'm always talking about these ancillary services.
Yep.
Too. There's a common misconception with radon in Chicago, where there's no radon in the city itself, and it's all in the suburbs, which is false. I mean, it's like 10%, but still, it's still 10%.
Right.
Because some of the areas around the city are like 80%, and always getting radon. But I've had a lot of agents who are like telling their clients, "Oh, don't get radon in the city," and I'm just upfront with them, like, why would you tell someone not to get radon and get that risk put on you? Because if there is that 10% chance and they do come out and someone gets cancer, who are they going to come after for that?
That's big liability. Big liability.
Yeah. So there's a lot of and a lot of realtors still talk about, oh, well, there's no radon in the city, and they probably heard that from another realtor, another realtor. So it's about correcting those misconceptions. And then for sewer scopes, in the city, it's a slam dunk. And we've had realtors our number one callback is for water coming back through the sewer line. And a lot of time, most of the times they didn't get a sewer scope done. So just giving them, hey, this is a major expense. If there is something wrong, they're gonna call you back. So it's there was a case where we did new construction. Realtor, I wouldn't have even thought of doing new construction for a condo building, but the buyer was moving from Phoenix. They had a sewer issue, and when our guys stuck down, they routed some things wrong. It was a $20,000 fix.
Ooh.
To have the sewer line. I just tell them stories like that, and it starts, it sells them, and it helps them sell to their clients, because ultimately the realtors are going to be we're going to try to sell a service, and they're going to go back to the realtor, right for that. So really, you need to start selling your ancillary services to the realtors and help them understand why it's important that they do so.
Yeah, and being assertive with it. I think owning it and letting them know, hey, as an agent, don't try to be the hero. This ain't the time to be the hero and act like you're saving the client $150. It's not the time to do it. And I think hopefully we can help inspectors here with some language of how to do that. But I think you're a good example of how Lunch and Learn's perfect time to do that.
Yeah, and they eat this stuff up. It's actually very surprising. For a lot of the top agencies in Chicago, just how much some of these guys are still using inspectors are there 45 minutes to an hour, and they haven't had that type of education. So just don't assume that since they're a seasoned agent that they know this, because they've probably heard a lot of stuff secondhand or haven't had an inspector come in. So
that's a great point.
Yeah. So, and I mean, some of it, some reasons you understand why they're using the cheap guy because they're valuing, but there's a lot of good top producing agents who really want what's best for the client. And it's about educating. A lot of these ancillary services, they haven't been as round as much as home inspections.
True.
So agents are still learning about them and learning, when they should schedule them too. And they want to know that information. The good agents want to know that information.
I think the key you mentioned is you bring numbers and a story, like storytelling, right? It's how we've evolved, as a culture, to society, is storytelling. So if you tell a story with some numbers attached to it, it sticks, I think, a little more than just, you should get a sewer scope.
Yeah. And you also, just by talking to agents, they might have their own stories.
True.
Too, that you can so if you're talking to a team and someone's like, oh yeah, that's that one time, and that's even better.
Yes.
So okay, you just keep talking because you're selling this for me.
Yeah. Awesome. Another thing I wanted to circle back to, you mentioned you can't grow without a vision of where you're going, which is more of a top-down kind of way of thinking about it, of you have a vision and a goal, and then you back into it with the numbers, as opposed to, I think the average company is oh, we're busy, we should hire. and then they don't have any targets, they don't have any metrics behind it. I don't know if there's additional context you wanted to add to that or not, but I think it's just you're starting with the end in mind as opposed to, oh, we feel stressed, we feel busy, we should hire, because that's what Mike and I used to do. We used to be like, oh, we're busy, support's busy, let's hire, as opposed to what's our goal, and then let's hire to get to the goal.
Yeah. I mean, home inspectors, for like new construction, we're going off plans, right? And if like, a contractor, we went to a new construction inspection, doing pre-drywall, and they didn't give us any plans, then like, what would we think about that?
Right.
They're like, oh, they don't know what they're doing. They don't, like, there's a lot of details that they're probably gonna miss because they don't have plans. It's the same thing for, the biggest thing that really started growing my company is just the mindset of like where I wanted to go and the numbers I wanted to hit. And just started thinking in terms of that way. Because there is that like law of attraction manifestation. It's just like you have to think it before you can create it, right? So if you want to grow a big company, you have to think about what that company would look like and the details. And the more you get into those details, they start coming to fruition and they start building off each other. So you really, just visioning and just saying like, you sit down and you're like, I want to triple my revenue next year. Well, what does that look like? What does your team look like? Who do you have to surround you like yourself? How are you gonna get that business? So like you want to do, let's say you did $300,000 in business this year. So tripling is 900,000. So how do you get to those numbers? And really breaking it down. A lot of companies are like, oh yeah, I want to triple revenue. And then they stop at that. They stop. And then, it's just like you're chucking at the dartboard blindly. You need to have very clear expectations. And even for me, like I realized I just need to get that much clearer. So, starting from place, it's all about getting clear about where you want to go. I think it also starts like, why do you want to be triple the revenue?
Why?
Why? Like a solo inspector who is completely satisfied with doing solo inspections and maybe build a little team office, so he's just being able to concentrate. That's perfect, I mean, you're happy. Why do you want to grow anymore? Like for me, like the whole reason is I want to have an impact on people. I want people to come into work and realize that they matter. I want them to first matter to themselves, for the work they're doing, but know that each and every employee comes into that door matters to me. And that's why I want to grow. I want to hold that vision where I am impacting every employee that comes through the door. And in turn, we're impacting our clients, our realtor partners, and our community.
So let's give people some actionable steps here for the ones that aren't always thinking this way. Because I know, we get lost in the day-to-day, the week-to-week, and then poof, another month goes by or quarter. Isn't the kind of IEB way of like, take 1 hour a month to start? Or like, how did you start on this journey? What was your actionable steps of like, I took 30 minutes to think about my why or whatever?
I mean, I think a couple things is, I mean, for me, I probably, if I were doing it all over again, I would do it differently. I would first make sure I have everything written down. I'm not very good at like writing and doing my own visuals and drawing stuff out like that. So I had a lot of stuff in my head. I just realized that, okay, this was the vision I had very solidified in my head. So really getting solid on that. So whether it's like writing out, I mean, as simple as either writing out or at least coming up with, if someone asks you, what is your why? You should be able to spout out like that, right?
Right.
Like one sentence. Like, what is your why behind it? And then really getting, crystal clear on, okay, what is your mission behind the company, which is your why? What is your vision for the company? Like, where do you want to go? Do you want to be a 5 inspector company? Do you want to be a 20 inspector company? Do you want to be 1,000 inspector company eventually down the line? And really getting crystal clear about that. And then I would say the next biggest thing is take actions. Like, take the actions to get to that step. Like, one of my most nervous things I was most afraid of was just to hire that first full-time guy next to me, because I'm like, how am I going to support him?
Right.
I did anyways. And guess what? I was able to support him because I had a vision that this was going to work out, and I was gonna, and then realized once I hired him, I had to take steps to support him and find him enough work.
Do you feel writing down and thinking about that vision helped give you the confidence to actually jump off the diving board and hire him?
Yeah. I mean, I think just focusing on where I wanted to be and the reasons why I needed that next person and what was really going to open up for me. Because honestly, like, as much as just hiring one inspector, that allowed me to do so much more with the business, right? And a lot of people look at people as expenses, but people are investments, and they're the best investments you're going to make, right? Hiring someone who is a great employee is going to make you more money.
Hands down. 10x, 100x sometimes.
Because that person's going to represent you well. They're going to fill in your gaps like we talked about earlier. And, they're going to free up your time, right? Because if I didn't get some more free time, I didn't have that time to be a visionary and to think, okay, what's the next step and how do we grow from here? And how do we deal? Like, there's so many other things we're working on, like a concierge type program now, and bringing that all in house. And like, how do we really expand? Because our mission to our end clients is we want them to have a 6-star experience. We just don't want them to come in and have a home inspection. We want to be there to support them through the whole real estate transaction and beyond. Yeah. And I think that's going to be a big part of our industry, is like, that's why there's so much, Porch and all these big companies are buying us up. It just, kind of reminds me, I forgot what the book was called, but talked about how Target was using, artificial intelligence to actually figure out based off shopping patterns when someone was pregnant.
Right.
I think they actually got in trouble for that. But the reason why they were doing that is because they realized that the people who are their ideal clients are new parents. Because I think all parents out there realize, like, okay, the first year or couple of years, you're shopping at Target, and you're not going to go to like the second or third store to get discounts. I think you're trying to go where the most
one-stop shop. Yep.
One-stop shop. So they started advertising. That's kind of what Porch and a lot of these other companies are doing. They realize that we are kind of like the pregnant women. We are kind of because once people move into that new house, they're going to spend a lot of money. Exactly. And my standpoint is, like, if they're going to spend money, I want them to get the best service that they can. And I want them to have that convenience. And I want them to be taken care of, because just like, pregnancy and being a new parent, real estate transactions are probably one of the most stressful, times of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought last year, and it just reminded me tenfold how stressed out you get just doing it. But if we could go in there and allow people to, relax, breathe, and really make the process easy for them, that's the vision that we hold for the company.
I love that. We have a huge opportunity in front of us as an industry. You guys were obviously, really invested in wanting to build the tools to help you guys craft that experience for people and take it further, take the experience and the relationship further. And I think there's lots of positive brand gains for all of us to be had, along with benefiting the homeowner, making their lives easier. If that's the end goal, we have a lot of room to go because it's fragmented as hell. There's confusion. They move in, then they're lost again.
Yeah. But if you could be that steady force that helps them along the way, I mean, you're also earning a client for life. So.
And that's a whole nother conversation of like what that looks like, other companies that inspectors want to create, pest control, maintenance. I mean, there's so many ways where your guys' companies can explode over the next couple of years.
The amount of technology that's going to come out in the next 5, 10, 15 years is going to change a lot of things. There's a lot of cool things coming, and HVAC, electrical, smart homes, that, I mean, we're got, like, you start seeing it, and I laughed when the first Alexa
same
Amazon thing came out. I have 4 of them in my house all over, and it's convenient, and that's what people are going to go. And the other thing is, the more and more technology comes out, I feel like the less and less the homeowners actually know. And there's going to be a bigger and bigger gap between that, and they're going to look for experts on that. So there's a huge opportunity just to kind of capitalize, and so even if you're a solo inspector, like like a lot of them will have their plumber, electrician, or someone that you're referring to. You need to start thinking about smart technology people that you're going to kind of refer and talk to, and really work with for your clients, because that's the stuff that they're going to want. Eventually everything's going to be like, think about 20 years from now, just how homes are going to be completely different,
right?
And what's going to be out there. So,
oh, so much opportunity. This might have to be another episode topic, just for this, because it's only scratching the surface, and I encourage every inspector to at least read an hour a week or a month on these other things that homeowners are thinking about and doing, because it is bleeding into our industry. It's no longer this sectioned off thing. You do the inspection and you're done. It can be, but I think the evidence out there is telling us it's going to turn into something bigger and more.
Yeah. I think the typical home inspector mindset is just like, I'm there to kind of be that independent third party, give them this and give them detailed report, and that's all I'm allowed to do. And my thinking is like, if it's in service of the client, then why not?
Right.
So like, you're going to send, and like, you're going to give them referrals to other companies that you have no control over their quality.
Right.
Right.
I
mean, the plumber that you've referred for 2 to 3 years, maybe he's starting to hire and he's not doing a good job,
right.
Training, and because
it could happen.
Yeah, it could happen. And then you start getting negative feedback for the referral you're getting too. So coming with a customer first mindset and realizing that there's such an opportunity just to like be this all-star team for this client, and give them an experience where they're like, well, what was so stressful about the real estate transaction? Because everything was kind of taken care of for us. They were able to introduce us to contractors or get their contractors out. They did pest control. They mowed our lawn for the first time coming in.
Well, they kind of had like a concierge, or like I guess a book of professionals that they hooked you up with.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And just keep going. Like, they all need these services. And the thing is, people, when they're going, their jobs don't get less demanding. They have all these other things that are taking time, in their life. It's just like, when they see, hey, we'll take care of all this for you. You don't really have to think. It's just like, that's what customer service is about.
Yeah.
It's really understanding what your client needs in the moment.
And I want to be clear to all inspectors, nothing worth having or any growth it's never going to be risk-free. There's nothing ever risk-free in this world. Like, when you said like, okay, yeah, the plumber you recommend could be busy and not call the client back. Yes, all these things can happen. But like, if we're all doing these things in good faith of trying to help the customer, if it makes you a few more dollars, if it increases your brand, helps you grow, I think we're all fine. It's not like we're peddling drugs out here. It's not like we're selling cocaine to people.
Yeah. it's also the clients ask for this stuff. It's not, I mean,
Every day.
they ask for it.
All
They
day,
ask
every
for
day.
it.
Yeah.
And if you don't give it to them, someone else is going to give it to them.
Someone else will.
So if you come in with like, we are going to take care of that client from the booking the inspection until they're moved in, and hopefully beyond that point, like that's a great company. That's what establishes great companies versus, average or very good companies. If you want to be great, you have to think about how am I providing that exceptional experience where that person's a client for life, and they're going to start referring you. And that's really where you start building traction. Is when you provide exceptional experiences to people.
I love how you think about all this. Well, we got a couple minutes left. What do you want to dig into? I know, are there other personal growth things you wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, one of the things, for people who are, inspired to grow their companies and grow large companies. It's just, I think the biggest thing that gets misunderstood is like you have to do a lot of personal work. You really have to get between your two ears and understand you, and that's kind of been my, of all the company growth, that's been my biggest concentration point over the last year, and has been most rewarding. It's just like, understanding who you are as a person and what your limiting beliefs are, and also how to deal with your emotions. Men don't like to express emotions, but everyone has them, and you think if you're afraid, that makes you less than a man, or less than a business owner. But I guarantee you, every business owner deals with fear on a daily basis.
Every
It's
human.
part of it.
Every human.
Every human, every human gets hurt. They get their feelings hurt.
Yeah.
And really, embrace it and realize what, the emotions are kind of signals that are telling you something, right?
Ooh.
I honestly think if you're not scared to do something, you probably shouldn't do it, because it doesn't mean enough to you.
Right.
If you're not getting emotional about, I mean, ultimately, like when you get hurt by someone, it means that you wanted something, you wanted to connect, or you wanted to make a difference to that person. I think that's, you're striving for stuff. So really getting, control of that, and then just realizing, hey, like there's times where I just realized there's just this one event in my life that had just, changed me, how I looked at things too. And like limiting belief that I wasn't good enough. And ultimately too, just understanding where you came and all your hardships. The beautiful thing is that really inspires your vision too. I came up with the vision of, and the mission that I want people to feel like they matter, because I didn't feel like I mattered very much when I grew up. I feel like I didn't get the attention that I wanted when I was growing up, and I didn't feel like I contributed a lot, and that's hard for me to say. It's very vulnerable, to say out loud, but understanding that, and that now I have the opportunity to make people feel like they matter every time they go into work, and do inspection, or take a call. That's really where the great stuff comes out, is realizing that all the stuff that you struggled with in the past can be your mission, and is an important reason, is important for getting to your why at the end of it. So I really want to encourage leaders, just like, don't just read about leadership books or business books or whatnot. I mean, dive in deep, get, like, everyone has their different ways. I've been involved in this year-long program through the Wright Foundation in Chicago, where I'm just, it's 3 hours a week and some weekends and whatnot, but really digging into that stuff. You will not grow as a leader if you don't grow as a person.
That's huge. Thank you. And I applaud you for sharing that. Every time someone in our industry or shows vulnerability like that, I see them gaining it. There's power in that. Basically, most people
Yeah.
think you're like leaving a blind spot open. No, you just gained power by being vulnerable. And look at your why. It's so much more impactful. Your why for what you're doing. I love it.
And your people are going to see that too.
Yeah.
They'll see when you're being authentic, and if you are trying to hide parts of you, they're also going to see that.
They can feel it. We're intuitive beings, and a leader with that kind of confidence to be vulnerable is going to get way more people wanting to follow them than the ones that peacock and play the tough guy. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be honest. Sometimes it's also like sometimes you do have to be tough, but if you come up from a toughness where, hey, I care a lot about you, I want the best for you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, are you trying to hide something? Are you trying to hide part of you too? Because I mean, that's another thing. Like anger, like I had a lot of limiting beliefs about anger, but there's good that comes out of it. I mean, just think about the motivating force and just be like, if you're not satisfied with your team's results, like you need to show that you're angry sometimes. You need to show that emotion, because if you just keep it in all the time, they're like, no one's happy that often.
It'll come out in the wrong ways.
It'll come out in the wrong ways too. But if you come out like, I'm angry with these results because I expect better from you guys, because I know there's more from you guys.
Yep.
Versus just cussing everyone out. Like, how could you be that stupid?
Right.
There's ways to use all your emotions. And I think, emotional intelligence, is a big key phrase, like, doing that, because ultimately you need to be able to you can only lead up to your level, right? So you're only going to be able to train and foster leaders underneath you if you're a step above. And guess what? As your business grows, or anything you do in your life, you're going to need to keep raising the bar on your leadership and become a better and better leader. I think Rob Lemoyne is always saying, like, I'm not the leader I need to be yet.
Yeah.
So holding that vision for yourself, and just really just like, people like just get so focused on the business stuff that the personal development and understanding who you are is going to give you the best gains.
Biggest ROI. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great place to leave it. Working on yourself is working on your business is going to have the biggest gains, and you're living proof of that. It's been amazing to see. This was good, man. This was good stuff. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I always enjoy coming on and just talking. I mean, I think that's what makes you guys different too. Just what you and Mike do, and really caring about the community. And you guys are owners and business owners and are trying to move the industry like we are. And you're in it with us. So it's, I think a lot of people on here have talked Spectora up. I'll talk it up more, and just like my business wouldn't be where it is without you guys too. I think that was also a big changing point where we're going, because when I hired my first full-time guy, we like almost immediately switched to Spectora, and we always get compliments from the realtors on the reports and just how everything's. But now everyone's using you guys. So it's just like,
no,
now we have to find another competitive advantage.
You know what? We'll cook something up. There'll be something. There'll be something we can cook up, a technological advantage.
Yeah. Well, no, and that also comes with the vision. It's just like, okay, how you separate yourself from everyone. Like, using Spectora will eventually be par for the course.
But a 6-star experience will not, and that's the beauty of your vision. Is like, no one's going to copy that, like, in mass.
Yeah. So how do you really, up your game? And maybe it's not, everyone does it a little bit differently, but how, what sets you apart?
Love it. All right, Tim, so much wisdom as always, man. I appreciate you taking time, and I'm sure we'll do this again, brother.
All right. I'll see you next year.
All right. Yep. Talk to you soon.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye.